Welcome everyone to session 18. This will be a session about journalism and or digital journalism. We have some really interesting presentations today. I don't want to waste any of your time, so we can begin with our first presentation. I would like to leave the floor to Burak, ÖZÇETİN and Perrin, ÖİN, EMRE. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hi to everyone. So I guess, Hocam, I will have around 10 minutes for presentation and about 5 minutes for Q&A, if I'm not wrong, yeah?
Yes, but I would like to remind everyone that it might be easier for everyone to ask their questions through the chat box. And we can take all the questions at the end of all presentations.
Okay.
I hope that's okay with everyone. And if you like, I can make a reminder when you have 2 minutes left, if that's okay.
I will also have my stopwatch with me. I'm keeping the time.
Okay, thank you, Burak Hocam.
I promised to finish around 11 past 5. Okay, political and social conceptualization of international migration in Turkey and news content analysis. Today, Burak, ÖZÇETİN, myself, and Perrin, ÖİN, EMRE will be presenting. We are together with Perrin with us. She's also with us at the moment. I'm from Istanbul Bilgi University, and Perrin Hocam is from Kadir Has University. We're both saying hi from Istanbul. First, thanks to our donor, our supporter, to TÜBİTAK. This presentation reflects the output of the project entitled Political and Social Conceptualization of International Migration in Turkey. This course is on migrants, asylum seekers and refugees, fuzzy cognitive maps and narratives of migration. The title of the project is so long, so is the length of the project at the same time. This is a huge project, an approximately 3 years project run by Professor Dr. Şule Toktaş from Ankara. She was at Kadir Has University, but currently at Police Academy, Ankara. Perrin and myself, Burak, ÖZÇETİN, we have also 3 research assistants working with us for this project. The code for the project is 119K256. As I have stated, this is approximately a 3 years project on how public discourses on migration are produced and disseminated by plural actors. And those actors are including the media. And we tried to, and still trying to, analyze those discourses through content and discourse analysis. The discourses produced and disseminated by the civil society and NGOs. And we have conducted in-depth interviews and discourse and content analysis of communication activities of NGOs. The discourses produced and disseminated by politicians, and we have conducted discourse analysis on politicians' discourses regarding migration. And finally, we are about to begin the final phase of this process, the discourses of citizens through the social media, and we are conducting discourse and network analysis in the social media, in-depth interviews with citizens, and also a novel method called fuzzy cognitive mapping with around 400 participants. We will start in the following months. And in this project, we are aiming at analyzing the resonation, interaction, and the relation between the discourses that are produced on migration or refugees in particular. In this phase, today we are going to present you the findings of the content analysis, okay? We will not be dealing with discourse analysis, or we will not be dealing with other aspects of discourses on refugees. We picked 9 national newspapers, actually 8, because one of them, there was not enough data. And the 8 national newspapers is Sabah, Hürriyet, Sözcü, Posta, Türkiye, Cumhuriyet, Bir Gün, and Yeni Çağ, with those newspapers presenting the plural discourses in Turkey. The ideological plurality, the political position of those newspapers were selected accordingly. And we made a search, actually not us, but Medya Takip Merkezi, a private company, who we have worked in real good coordination, and with some keywords like göç, göçmen, mülteci, sığınmacı, kaçak. With those keywords, we have searched all news from 2011 to the end of 2020. So nearly we tried we covered the whole process with the breakdown of the Syrian crisis to nearly contemporary Turkey or today. This is the interface that Medya Takip Merkezi, or the company that we have used. I just took this as an example. This is the interface, the related news. You're just clicking on the related news, and with all keywords, the company provided us with around 100,000 news, but many of which were irrelevant. Kaçak, göç, göçmen, as you can imagine. And we have eliminated the irrelevant news, and we came up with 2,285 news items selected according to simple random sampling, representing the whole population with a 2% margin of error. We have prepared a detailed coding guide. Today, we're just going to give you some information about the basic findings of content analysis, because we do not have time, and it takes a lot of time to go into cross tables and deeper analysis. But we will be presenting those findings in our website and in the prospective publishings. We have prepared a detailed coding guide. 3 coders coded around 2,300 news items. As I have stated, we have eliminated all irrelevant news, and 3 coders coded all the data, and entire coder reliability test was ensured, tested through multiple methods. Let's go to the structure of the data that we're dealing with. The 2,285, as I have stated, all the news were pure, random sampling, simple random sampling were applied, and we have analyzed 2,285 news according to this distribution. I'm not going to repeat all the numbers that are listed here in order not to lose time. So one of the questions that we asked was to understand the tone of the news. How does the news item, individual news item, define the issue in a positive or negative tone, or in a neutral way? And we have seen that a considerable section of the news on migration or refugees, whatever you say, this terminology is also a matter of contention, as you know. Legally, those people are, not, the Syrians are not considered legally as refugees, but we, when we're talking about them, we're calling them refugees. Okay, I'm just noting down this legal and definitionary issue. We have seen that nearly 70% of the news on refugees and migration are with a negative tone, and only 1/4 of the news have a positive tone, we can say, and about 6.5% of the news were coded as, for example, this is an example to a news which has a positive tone, which is setting the problem as an opportunity, not a threat, as having positive connotations, not dramatic, threatening frames and so. So another example to the news can be quoted as a news which has a negative tone. Assad has gone crazy, fear, crisis, someone who is out of his mind is being stressed in this news item. One of the things that we asked in our content analysis was that, are there any success stories regarding the ordinary lives or education, economic ventures of refugees? What we have seen that only a small minority of the news include success stories. In line with the negative tone of the news, we have seen that only a really small minority of the news items see refugees or portray refugees as successful, accomplishing, and promising individuals who has a lot of prospects. For instance, there are two nice examples from Turkey newspaper. Savaştan kaçan Suriyeli, the Syrian student who ran away from the war, became, the first in his class. Or once she was homeless, but now she's selling homes. Those kind of news are stressing the educational or economic success of individuals. Crime news were so important for us. We have seen that in approximately 8% of the news, we have seen that crime was the dominant theme. When we look at the composition of the crime news, we asked what the crime is about, who is the perpetrator, and who are the victims of the crime. Approximately half of the news, refugees are perpetrators of the crime. Interestingly, the refugees are also the victims of crimes in 63% of the crime news. Okay, these are about crime news. Crime is mostly represented as an inter-migrant, immigrant phenomenon. Only 1/4 of the victims in crime news are Turkish Republic citizens. Crimes are mostly assault and theft and extortion. Those are again examples to crimes. Okay, we have seen that nearly half of the news items include statistical data. This is about the country of origin. Not surprisingly, about 65% of the news on migration, migrants, and refugees are from Syrian as country of origin. Primary actors of news, when you look at, the striking fact is that local governments and NGOs, who are actually two of the most important actors who are dealing with refugees in the field, are overly underrepresented in the news. Local governments are only seen as a theme in 0.3% of the news, and NGOs are only seen in 2.19% of the news. In 1 minute, I will finish. Oh, I'm running. When you look at the portrayal of the refugees, we are not talking about the tone of the news, but portrayal of the refugees, we see something interesting. Although in many cases, the news items has a negative framing, the refugees are not that much negatively represented. We have seen that in around 1,200 of news items, we have seen that refugees are portrayed as victims of the issue. They are not portrayed as threats. They are not in this category. So we can say that although the media outlets that we have analyzed, seeing migration and refugee problem as a negative issue, they are not tackling with the refugee individually as a negative identity or negative entity in itself. Securitization is the most salient way within the news. Near half of the news, 40% of the news, has a securitization problem, seeing refugee problem as a security problem. This is followed by humanitarian moral frames, and in the third place, migration and refugee issue is framed as an economic issue. Mostly refugees are represented as collective entities, not individual human beings who has real lives. And mostly again, in 58% of the news, we see an emotional language or emotional stress in news. The conclusions that we reach are mostly the tone of the news are negative, but a more positive approach towards refugees is a striking finding of us in the news. Refugees are mostly the object of the news, but not subject. This is so important. You cannot hear the voices of the refugees. Refugees are not talking. They are being talked about. Thirdly, local governments and the NGOs are the missing or silent actors in the news. But in fact, they are the ones who has the most contact. They are in the field. They are the ones who has the most contact with the refugees. Securitization and humanitarian frames are most salient ones, followed by economic frames. And cultural and political integration, discussions regarding citizenship, discussions regarding education, educational, cultural, political, social, economic integration of refugees are another missing theme. It took 14 minutes for us to make this quick presentation. I hope you have enjoyed it. We are open to your questions, but I guess we have only 1 minute for questions, but I'm seeing the chat box and no questions are coming. Thank you very much for listening, and we are done.
Burak Hocam, thank you very much. I can see that it's a very comprehensive, very big study, and you summarized it very well. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. There are hundreds of other things that we could have talked about,
yeah,
but we do not have enough time. But I hope that this at least gave a short glimpse of what we have discussed and analyzed so far.
It definitely did. Thank you. And maybe you can share your website, your project's website in the chat box if someone else wants to visit your website.
Of course, I'm doing it immediately in the chat box.
Okay, thank you very much. And if our listeners have any questions, we will have time at the end of the session. So you can write them in the chat box anytime you like.